Hello, everybody. It's CJ Miller. I'm in my apartment in downtown Shreveport, Louisiana, across the Red River from beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana. I always want to invite people to come check us out. Um, the idea of just, people discovering some cool things about Shreveport, uh, yeah. But in the meantime, I want to talk about this is going to be a movie review. And I haven't done one of these in a while, so it'll be fun. But I watched it at home. This movie called The Exorcism. Now, right away, I'm going to let you know, like most uh, demon possession movies, there's a certain suspension of belief that's required. Not in uh, in terms of faith, not a suspension in faith or anything like that, but just in the physical plausibility of some of the things. However, I will say, as far as exorcism movies go, um, you have top tier, which is The Exorcist, uh, because it was the first, and the acting was so top notch in The Exorcist. And then everything after that that was a demonic possession movie, especially if it involved an exorcism, was basically there's no way to do an exorcism movie without it really being essentially a remake of The Exorcist. No matter what you do, it's like you take the tropes, which initially The Exorcism was such an original thing because it wasn't in the forefront of American culture until when 19 well, when the book came out, people read it, and then really when the movie came out and they saw it, that it was like uh, it became it got in the forefront of everybody's imagination. It was on the zeitgeist of the world, and ever since then, it's been like you know. Remade repeatedly under different names, rip-offs and everything like that. Some very directly, some sequels, uh, homages and everything like that. So to say that The Exorcism, this movie that I'm going to talk about, um, it's weaker than The Exorcist because you see some of the things coming. It's a story that you've seen before, but what's different is the some of the twists that happen. So the exorcism basically is it's it was written, produced, and everything by the son of Jason Miller, who played Father Karras in the original Exorcist. And it started out as an idea of he wanted to do a uh, sort of a biography at the time that Jason Miller was filming. And of course, that movie had like an emotional toll on a lot of the actors, basically because when an actor, when you're really um, you know into it, then you sometimes you have to like shake off those emotions, and sometimes they cling to you. Even Ellen Burstyn, who played Chris McNeil, has said that The Exorcist was the hardest movie that she had to do. And it was such a really good movie because it felt real for a lot of people. There's just a sense of forces that they shouldn't be messing with, and that's a kind of a, a quote that's attributed to Marcel Vaucateur, who was a special effects guy in the film. So this movie, they were going to kind of, he was trying to tell that story. And of course, it just it took that toll, and he kind of wanted to talk about observing his father dealing with those heavy topics during the filming. Uh, and it's sort of that, but then sort of not. And there is some parody between the lead character, whose name is Anthony Miller, played by Russell Crowe in The Exorcism. That he's got the voice. He sounds a lot like Jason Miller in this really just you know uh, this really almost slightly slurred, depressed voice. It's like like just kind of maybe a little bit of in the shock of it all, or in the emotion, just kind of going through the downplaying everything, uh, because there's a finale. It's really good. So he is playing this character, Anthony Miller, and his daughter, of course, is an adult daughter, home from, I guess, her freshman year of college or something like that. And so he goes out and he gets the role of this movie, which is, uh, they don't just come right out and say it, but it's obviously they're making a remake of The Exorcist. And I mean, the whole set and everything like that, it's so much like it. So um, this movie succeeds in a lot of ways, where a lot of people feel that The Exorcist believer, uh, failed. And that means that, and the reason why is because it lets itself go there. The ways that some of the best things about The Exorcist, the original, and also to a degree the TV series, that first season, which got praise, whereas the second season kind of like let things kind of slide, and that's why it didn't get picked up again, because they really kind of backtracked a little bit. But uh, with the things that The Exorcist, really let itself do. Um, Subsequent movies have kind of, and sequels and everything, have kind of backed away from that. Uh, this one doesn't have the same shock value, The Exorcism, but it's got a very fresh take on it, and it does seem kind of a realistic meta approach. Let's put it like this: there was a movie, Late Night with the Devil. That movie took the demon possession trope, and it went meta with it. Late night host, and has like a Halloween special, and dealing with dark forces, and a possessed girl and everything. But that movie uh, didn't take itself too seriously, and basically the third act is a great big old uh, acid trip, and a it's like a hallucinogenic kind of a hypnosis kind of thing, a fever dream. But it doesn't. It plays and has fun with the viewer. This movie does not. This movie is straightforward. Uh, Takes itself serious. And I will say the finale and the denouement of this movie um, don't work as well as uh, the closing act of the original, The Exorcist, um, because one of the things that the novel did was kind of leave room for doubt, and you give some discussion, and it's like, up until the very end. And I haven't read the novel in a while, but it's like, um, it's kind of, could she have been possessed? Could it have been psychological? And uh, could the ritual have, like, you know, played on Reagan's belief, and it cured her, but then also really got to the priest. Like no one really knows what happened in the book, because what happened at the end of the book wasn't like in the movie. In the movie, we actually see the finale where the Karis character gets possessed and throws himself out of a window to keep from killing. See, that is not something that something like that. It does happen in the novel, but all the noise is heard from downstairs by the mother, Chris McNeil. All that ruckus, and then she runs upstairs and she runs into the room, and then there's just the daughter. So it's very, you know, uh, it's a mystery as to what happened in the novel. And I really think if it played out that way, it would have been. I think it would have been more to the point of what the novel was, which was not a very specific, uh, you know, answer. Yes, this girl is possessed. It was more like, is she? Is she not? All the way through the book. Um, Even with everything that was happening to her physically, it was probably due to her, psychological, and we don't really get that answer. But in the movie, no, it's definitely demonic infestation, and there is a scene about halfway through. I think some of the manifestations in the Exorcism, this Russell Crowe movie, uh, where he's even older than Jason Miller, obviously, when the Russell Crowe. But, he's looking a little bit like John Goodman, honestly. Russell Crowe from the old days, but then cross him with John Goodman, and then give him the voice of Jason Miller. You can just imagine the work that he does. And it's a very solemn performance, very uh, reeled in. And even the effects are okay. They're not too over the top. They're mostly practical. But at one point, there's a scene where there's a manifestation that's a little too when it happens on the movie set, because he's playing the priest. He's an actor playing the priest in this remake that they're doing of an exorcism movie, and um, there's a manifestation that happens uh, in front of the entire cast and crew and everything that's on set, and it's only partway through the movie, and it's just a little. I don't know. I think it's too early in the movie for that kind of manifestation, you know. But but then there's a lot more to the movie, and it continues on. But the reason why I say that it's a little bit too early for that kind of manifestation, because they go on for quite a while. What does it mean? And it's like, at some point, listen, it's just like the first movie, The Exorcist, which was really good because it shocked people. But if you're seeing like a little girl and her throat, like and then when she's in the bed and everything, and her throat kind of like gets that bladder effect, and basically there's a grown man's, voice box in her throat, or that kind of thing. When you see those kind of, it's like you don't. I mean, it's yeah. You just, you may not have the answers, but you know what the answers are not, and so you know that it's not at that point a physical illness. So anyway, uh, but anyway, and this manifestation that happens in this movie. Uh, around that same time in the movie. It's like this movie as a remake does some things that are beat by beat, but it's the actor uh, Anthony Miller who is getting kind of obsessed with the movie and his role and everything, so it kind of becomes meta, and of course true to the character, or true to the real life Jason Miller. This actor is an alcoholic who struggles with previous alcoholism and addictions and everything, and that happened a lot in Jason Miller's life. And so there was some of that that the son got to address when making this movie, but they didn't really. They talked about why don't we tell your story, but why don't we make it uh, an exorcism movie about an exorcism and make it really good. Now, this movie goes off in places that is going to be, oh, it's going to take the Catholics off, you know? It really is. And also, you know, like, there's more than one twist to this movie at the very end. And it's like, it's almost a little bit too cinched up where you maybe you like, okay, I kind of saw that coming, but you weren't quite sure, but you saw it coming. It could have been, and yeah. So the ending of it. This is a good movie, though. It's very entertaining. What really impressed me about this, because I've seen this is a story we've seen in just about every exorcism movie since The Exorcist, and The Exorcist does it best. Um, Second to that, I would say, second to The Exorcist, the first Exorcist movie, second in that kind of performance, I would say to some degree, maybe the first season of the TV series. And and then in sheer terms of originality, even though it looks like an old time biblical sandal saga kind of thing, uh, with Paul Henry and uh, um, Richard Burton and everything like that. The Exorcist to The Heretic probably would be the third in my list of favorites. The only thing about the movie, it's not a bad movie, Exorcist to The Heretic. It's just it should have been made probably 10 years before it was. It looked like a movie that should have been made and put out 10 years before uh, it was released. And it had it not been a sequel, uh, like if it had not come on the reputation of The Exorcist, which is one of the greatest movies, not just a horror movie, but it's one of the greatest movies that they've made. It was so well done in that era of the new Hollywood classic. That was the feel. But instead, uh, Exorcist to The Heretic did not have that new Hollywood classic appeal. It actually had a classic 1940s and 50s going into the early 60s kind of classic Hollywood approach. And that's where, more than anything else, that is where the Exorcist to The Heretic fails. No one's really kind of addressed it or talked about it in that point. I think I have a couple of times, but for me, that's where that movie fails. But in aside from being amalgamistic and everything, it's because I know where they were trying to do with it, and so it's in my third favorite in the franchise of that slot, and then of course, uh, fourth would be The Exorcist Believer. Um, I'm not including. I'm not including the uh, what was it, Repossessed, because that's not actually part of the franchise. That was a comedic, spoof. But yeah. Um, no, I want to say no. I want to change that. I want to say Exorcist 3 would come before Exorcist 2: The Heretic, simply because of the psychological approach of it. Um, and yeah, if they wanted to do the exorcism that they did in Exorcist 3 in the theatrical version of it, which is not in the director's cut, they should have cinched it in, tied it together a little more, n- with a little more neatness, and they did not. All of a sudden, it's like, oh wow, here's a Father Morning going to do an exorcism on this patient X who is you know thought to be deceased, Damien Karras, and blah blah blah. And so here we get this, uh, you know, these people, um, these horrific events. Uh, yeah, I wonder where Kinderman uh, in that movie shoots Karras, the priest, and how do you just you do that? And then how do you have a denouement? But there's no investigation. There's no. It's kind of like everybody just kind of like, okay, cool. That's what happens, you know. Well, so sometimes the only time that really works for me is in the very first Exorcism movie, the Exorcist, where Reagan is 12 years old, played by then 14-year-old Linda Blair, but she credibly plays a 12-year-old who then turns around and credibly plays a demon's inside of a little girl. And the only way you get away with a body count of three people at that time is when you are 12 years old and you are either possessed by a demon or batshit out of your mind, and the other movies, um, it just, it seems, ooh, there's no real looking into, there's no real consequence there's no aftermath, you know. And I would say the Exorcist 2, The Heretic was the aftermath story of Exorcist 3, but that's the only time they have ever come to investigate and to do an actual, like, okay, this happened, and so now there are consequences, and we've got to deal with it and clean it up. At least Exorcist 2, The Heretic tried to do that. So it gets props on that point alone, because no other time really do they do that in this franchise. It's kind of like, we shrug it off, and the only way that works is in the first movie. When other movies, like even in the prequels, in a foreign country, maybe where they don't really have they have the, I don't know, the uh, Exorcist, the beginning, the lead lady uh, is possessed and dies during the exorcism, and there's no consequence for the priest whatsoever. Yeah. Not that he did it, but I mean, nobody's really like, hey, um, and yeah, so like the whole village and blah blah blah. I guess maybe you could say in the at the time where it was like kind of an African under English occupancy and apartheid and everything like that, and it's like, I don't know if I'm saying the right words, but maybe the uh, the lack of uh, the lack of respect for other cultures at the time maybe kind of would allow that to happen. But she was uh, like a renowned English doctor, so I don't know. They never, and demons enter through trauma, so they never address what her trauma might have been. Maybe just seeing uh, it being there. I don't know. Anyway, but this is not. This is, I guess, it's hard to talk about one of these movies without talking about them all. Now, The Exorcism is not a direct sequel to The Exorcist, but uh, it it kind of fits. You'll see it. It kind of hits the points, and then we get to the finale, and then the denouement, and it's like, Okay, you go through this journey. We need things to make just a little bit more sense, as to consequences of to the main players who live through what they lived through. We need consequences to that. We see if there's closure. We need to know how the characters uh, get to the point that they achieve their closure. You know, so that's one area in which these movies could spend a touch more time, but running time and all the budgets go to effects and everything. Where the exorcism really sells itself is the acting, which is something that has been a little off in the rest of the franchise, except for the first movie. But yeah, the acting is Russell Crowe sells it, and this really is a vehicle movie for Russell Crowe. Now, the events happen largely take place through the experience of his adult daughter, but and it explores that father-daughter relationship. Kind of a flip on The Exorcist, which explored a adult mother to a young daughter. Uh, so it kind of like takes that trope and flips it again. You know what I mean? So it's a double flip because you have in this movie you have and you are dealing with an actor making a film, such as we were in The Exorcist, but it's the father, and of course he takes he's the vulnerable one to possession. Is he possessed? Is it psychological? And then where we get to it, so um, they do really well with this. I really would love to have seen what the son of Jason Miller, what his take on his father during the time of The Exorcist really was, that biography that he was going to do of Jason Miller, and I guess maybe an autobiography of himself. Everything. Yeah, I would love to. I would love to see that, and maybe one day we'll get that, or a novel of it, or something like that. But I mean, he went on to do a lot of other movies, so nothing like this. Nothing like the end of The Exorcism. So they, yeah, they took the idea and they spun it, and they said, let's turn it into basically uh, the truest remake of The Exorcist that we've had so far. And then even flip it a little bit more. And like I said, Roman Catholics are going to be pissed um, at some of the subplots that go on, which, yeah, which lends itself to uh, a happenstance. Is it a happenstance? Is there some sort of reckoning? I don't know, but it's like, really, like, there's a sense of justice that occurs, but there's a sense of non plausibility. At some point, it's like, I don't know. But aside from that, where you just really have to give yourself, because I'm very cerebral and I'm a very ironic. I love to think and write fiction, but my mind is so literal that when I watch a work of fiction, I don't want there to be, unless I'm watching fantasy and science fiction and that kind of thing. But when I'm watching something that's supposed to be realistic, then I don't want to stray away from human psychology and sociology. I don't want to stray away from what would, okay, all that happens. Okay, well, you know, someone's going to end up in a psych ward or a jail or something. This is not, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. And that's any of these movies. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a pretty big ending. The ending, the very ending, it's formulary in a way. This movie, The Exorcism, is formulary. What really sells it is the wonderful acting of Russell Crowe, but he won't get a nomination or anything at the Academy for this because it's definitely um, it's an adaptation of an adaptation that's also original in its own sense because it's not really an adaptation; it's more of an homage. Think of it like this: Have you seen that movie, The French Lieutenant's Woman, where you have Jeremy Irons and Meryl Streep, and they're acting in a movie, but then the characters and the roles that they're playing uh, kind of seep into their lives, and they're playing characters that had this kind of forbidden affair in a period piece, and then the actors and playing the roles. I mean, they uh, fall into sort of a forbidden relationship, you know. And so that's the French Lieutenant's Woman. So that was meta before uh, we were even using the term meta. There was a self awareness to that. Life imitating art, art imitating life. That's all meta is. A self awareness of the art form in itself. You know, but you know. Uh, No, it's perception. Perception has no life. It's set for what the beholder views. You know, um, because it's just like I can sit here and I can tell you a story that I've been through and I've lived through, and in your mind, you are definitely not going to picture it the same way that I do. You're not. You're going to have a different interpretation, a different takeaway, and that's just from different perspectives, and so the life of an homage or art imitating life, life imitating art, any of that. It really depends upon the receiver of that art form. Whoa, is that? I'm just talking in circles about duh stuff that people already know, but it really. These are the themes that really serve this movie, The Exorcism, and yeah, I would watch it, and I would say, you know what, this is probably one of the better uh, demon possession exorcism movies. There's one or two scenes where they just go uh, a little overboard, but it's minor. But those are the points that really kind of hurt it. Now I'm gonna rate this movie, The Exorcism, starring Russell Crowe. I'm going to um, I'm going to rate it a. I'm going to rate it HP, as in home purchase. I would purchase it at home uh, and want to keep it in my regular rotation, my regular personally owned movies. In my personal owned collection. Uh, I don't think, and I've seen Russell Crowe do some pretty decent acting, but I don't think he's ever been quite. Um, what impresses me is that he looks like more like a John Goodman than Jason Miller looked like Jason Miller, but the he sells it with the voice, with the mannerism, with the attitude. He really does seem like he could have been someone, Anthony Miller, this character, who was a direct homage of Jason Miller. It's like he must have studied that man. Um, and his performance in The Exorcist in particular, and he did such a wonderful job in portraying the personality that he was supposed to be homaging. Uh, you know, so uh, if this were any other type of movie, if he were doing, say, if he were playing an older version of Jason Miller and then looking back, I don't know. It's like he doesn't look at all like Jason Miller, but because of the acting, he really could have been, and you would have believed it. Jason Miller, if he wanted to do a straightforward performance of Jason Miller in his later years, I'm sure he could have pulled it off. Uh, because he's that it's that close of a performance. And then at it's not even really about um, if this is an exorcism movie or not. The movie is called The Exorcism. It is about exorcism, a film within the film, and everything like that. But uh, it's whatever. Check it out. Rated HP, home purchase. Like on digital media, whatever. Like I don't know if I'd, you know, you can, yeah, you want to keep this one around. It's a good one. It's a good performance. There are uh, some performances. They're all good performances in this movie. They're all good performances. The daughter does not get. I don't know that she reacts as plausibly as any daughter would, given this set of situation. She acts the part well. It may be an issue with the writing or something like that. I'm just not seeing when you. Yeah, there's a couple of scenes where it gets a little intense between the father and daughter, but um, you do not really get that whole sense. Do you remember in The Exorcist, the movie? If you've seen it, it was so low key and downplayed, except for when the emotional distress was dialed way up, especially with Ellen Burstyn. Very, very quiet, subdued, numb, all the way through. Uh, and then there were times when she would just be like just erratic and crying and but just well, what's going on? That kind of thing. We didn't really get that kind of performance from the daughter. She's no Ellen Burstyn, but she's a credible actress in her own right, and so there are some themes that are going to be, uh, you know, touchy outside of the spiritual realm. Um, but this film is about as meta as it can possibly get. You know, um, so uh, check it out, watch it, enjoy it. I'm gonna go and I'm going to uh, cook some fish. I'll have some catfish, and by the time this loads, I will have finished cooking some catfish, and I'll talk about the fish that I'm doing, the catfish fillets, in that next video coming soon. Peace. Love and light, and do come see us in Shreveport.